welcome people who somehow can join right when we start, which is almost never. Oh, but people who are listening on Spotify, thank you so much. We
Are
really
people listening
appreciate
on
that.
Spotify?
Yes, we're on Spotify, Cameron.
But not live.
We're not, but that's the magic of the internet is that people can listen to this at a later time that is not now. And we have to pretend like we're talking to them.
Oh, they know that we're doing a live show. They don't need to be pandered to. The audience is not slow. They're not dumb, as K. says. But so Paging Dr. Beat, it's a genre of Southeast Asian dance music, I think Filipino, but it was like a big old thing a couple months ago where it's like Paging Dr. Beat, emergency. What, I forget what it's called though. It's like a specific, like, you know how like bachata is like a specific type of dance music. It's like that kind of genre, except in I think the Philippines or Indonesia or something.
For those of you who joined us, hi Raffaello, hi Frank. If you know what the heck Cameron is talking about, drop in the chat. I'm imagining it's something like oh my gosh, what is the genre of Bad Bunny? Reggaeton, but then like from Southeast Asia or something.
Yeah, it's like that.
Is that what you listen to?
Sometimes.
Well, Cameron was making fun of me saying emergency about me resetting up all the settings in our new streaming tool, EVMux. So hopefully to you all, we look slightly more high res. To us, we do. So, well, folks are joining in. We're going to talk about source today. What are your thoughts when we arrived at this word?
Rafael, what do you know about house music? They're often not played in houses. That's like the craziest thing about house music. You know what I mean?
Have you seen those charts that show you like the relationship between like all the various genres of EDM? And it gets into like house, tropical house, all the subdivision. I feel like it's helpful to demonstrate my ignorance of this genre.
I really like weirdly hard style.
Like with the bass drop?
What?
Like with the bass drop?
I mean, it does have bass drops, but like hard style is specifically a genre of music where like it has an aggressive quarter note bass, like overblown, so it's like do 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 do. I'm a pretty I really do like that a lot, actually. It's like a surprising amount.
Is it because it wakes you up? Like the heartbeat?
Yeah, kind of.
Well, you should get one of those mixer things so you can demonstrate to us.
Like a turntable? Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't know. Whatever that Mark Riboulet guy has set up. Like with the loopy things.
Oh, like an Ableton?
Yeah. And the physical buttons that go with it. You know? Like the keyboard and the buttons. A pad. That's what it's called.
Love it on Twitch.
I think it's so interesting how the likely spam message always is about the same.
I mean, hey dude, I admire you. And I would love to send you a link that just wrecks your shit. Oh no. Did I unplug? No, I'm good. All right.
Hey, Curious Hermit. Ooh, I love the new profile pic.
Oh, it looks like a saint or the Virgin Mary or something. It looks like it would be in a triptych. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Do you know what a triptych is? Triptych?
3 pictures next to each other.
Yeah. And there's a big old famous one. What's the famous one? The
famous triptych? Oh,
it's of like heaven and hell, I think.
Mm-hmm.
and it's like heaven, I think earth, and then hell. I saw it in
Mhm,
person in Spain. What
mhm.
was it? Oh, I gotta look it up. I have these art flashcards, and it's
We're
on
turning
the.
into Joe Rogan show where we're like, we're trying to say something intellectual, and immediately we're like, oh crap, we don't remember what's actually called, and we gotta emergency look it up.
I mean, we don't have a Jamie or whoever to look stuff up, but that's fine. We'll just be not informative and wandering. Um,
Fine.
oh, thank you, Gwen,
So
for the pronunciation check.
if you
Kristen,
are in a triptych,
yes.
or someone were to paint you in a triptych, what are the scenes most representative of you?
Getting stabbed by a lot of swords. Just
Oh,
like a flat drop of blood in the medieval style, pre-Renaissance art. Just
mhm.
that's what I would be.
I mean, that's a very strong tarot card-like image.
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
Is that how you feel, how you perceive yourself?
I mean, I do think I've been in a state of bleeding for the past few years. Yeah.
Mm. And then what's in the other panels? You get 3.
Me dead, and then me as baby Jesus. Those are the 3.
Well, that's not problematic at all.
I mean, you're born, you get stabbed, and you die. What's hard about that?
And then you get reborn as the savior?
No, that we skip. No, I'm baby Jesus first, so I didn't need to get reborn. I don't get raised from the dead. I think I
Oh,
was a
okay. So you're
prototype.
just talking about like the cycle of humanity, of being born and then like
Yeah,
stabbed with 1,000 swords and then killing over.
yeah, I think so. I think that's pretty close. Because like,
Mm.
just because you're represented as baby Jesus
Mhm.
doesn't mean it's like a literal thing,
Mhm.
right? Because they used to represent, like good or like pious women or whatever as Virgin Mary because she's like the best woman in that time, right? Like that was like the archetype of perfection, right?
Mhm.
It's like a metaphor for perfection.
Mhm.
And so like baby Jesus was a metaphor for like a good baby because there's some like crappy babies out there.
No, I did not know that there are
What's
crappy
up, Pug?
babies
You
out there.
joined on a good show.
Well, there are babies like, and especially in these medieval illustrations, who look like old men already. I
Yeah,
mean, those are like a little
those are some of the
harder to
bad
look
ones.
at.
Look, I'm not here to judge babies, but I will if you ask me to.
Yes, and Puxon, this is what we normally talk about, judging babies on this
Yeah.
show. Ah. All right. So we will get into the book in a bit.
Yeah.
And don't worry, we'll only talk about the book for a little bit. We're
We'll
trying to make
burn
these
it.
like,
What?
yeah, these like 10-minute clips of us talking about a book so that people have something to relate to that's outside of our friend group. But for now, we want to talk about source without referencing the book, and like that could mean a lot of things. It could mean like a greater universal divine presence of some kind, I think.
Yeah.
And it can also mean like a mundane, like your source of inspiration, like where are you, like, what is an idea from the book? Like where are you seeding like what you want to do, and collecting in terms of like, you know, outputs from other people that inspire you.
So what's your source, Kristen?
So I feel like I have had times where I feel like I call it like, when I talk to my spiritual brother, Anansi, I said, "Oh God, like God is keeps blowing up my voicemail and I haven't been picking up."
Yeah.
Like there's a very specific feeling where I feel like there is some divine's presence like trying to connect, and
Mm.
I feel like, "Oops, I did not pick up the phone."
Okay.
That that is usually my reaction. Um,
That's interesting, and honestly, kind of sounds like me when I'm pretending to be a solipsist.
oh.
If you think like a god is specifically talking to you,
Mhm.
and you have better things to do than talk to it, like that feels in the same ballpark to me. But sorry, continue.
Um, yeah. So then I think the frustrating part to me is that of course, like there's been times where it's a little bit more clear what the message is, but a lot of times it's like someone's calling and you don't know why is really the feeling that I have. But there are also
Super.
periods in my life where I feel like there is no one's calling me right now, and
Huh.
I'm just kind of like on my own doing my own thing.
Okay. What does do you feel bad if you're not getting the phone call? Is it a phone call? Is it a text message? Is it a carrier pigeon?
Sometimes it's a text message. Somehow,
So
my
no
God,
carrier
that
pigeon. Got it.
happens times. I don't feel bad, but I feel puzzled.
Okay.
It's almost like, oh, I'm receiving. Okay, did you ever watch Third Rock from the Sun?
I feel like I've seen an episode or two, but that's kind of
Okay.
older, right?
It is much older. This is indicative of my age. But French Stewart plays a character who is the antenna
Yeah.
for their like alien boss. And then like every time he receives a message, he goes like this, and he has to say whatever the boss says.
That's
So it feels like that.
Does it like disrupt the show and it's just like paging Dr. Beat?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Does this explain a lot about how I am?
Yeah, you get messages from the beyond. What's up, Marianne?
Of course, like secularly, what can this mean, right? Like, before you all think I've lost my rocker, I think like there are times where I'm more receptive
Yeah.
to certain like, subconscious items, but it's
Okay.
almost like I'm also not conscious enough to figure out what's going on. But it's like it's there, and sometimes I'm just like going about my day and there's no subconscious connection whatsoever.
How do you know it's there?
It's sort of like, when someone asks you, how do you know you have legs? Sorry for non-inclusivity if you don't have legs. Like, you just
Get out of
know,
the chat.
right? Like there is like proprioception, right?
Yeah, like the touch your nose thing. What is that called?
Yeah, or you
Science
don't
lady?
even need to touch your nose to know you have a nose.
I
You're
Don't
questioning whether you have a nose.
no. So now I am
Lord.
wondering if I mean I could see it on the camera, but
Mhm.
I can. That's interesting because I feel like I mean I definitely know I have fingers without looking at my fingers, but my nose I think I'm a little anxious about because I can't tell it's there.
Okay. Well, we gotta have nose awareness day. You can decide a day in the year.
Yeah, we're canceling legs. If you got legs, you get out of the chat, please.
Yeah. Oh, this reminds me of who's that character from Forrest Gump?
Lieutenant Dan?
Lieutenant Dan. Actually, yeah, I was thinking about Lieutenant Dan the moment I talked about legs. But yeah, so I feel like there is that.
Yeah.
However, a lot of my creative stuff I wouldn't attribute to divine inspiration. To me, like I follow much more tactical paths to that.
Okay.
So like
So God talks to you. He's just not very helpful.
not in the making stuff kind of way. And also I don't bother. It's sort of like when like the Super Bowl when everyone thanked Jesus for winning. Like I
Yeah.
was thinking, is Jesus sitting there watching Super Bowl? Like, isn't that kind of like a funny image?
He's too busy deciding wars, obviously.
Yeah. So I feel like in that sense, I don't seek like a divine input because I feel like this is like so boring for divine beings to think about all my little things. So I'm
Gosh.
like I'm much more on my own. How about you?
Kristen, we could not be further apart in how we think about this. Like, I don't believe
It'll be a
in.
show. We agree on everything.
No, I mean, we don't agree on everything. We're just friends, so we're not jerks about it. All right, so
Sometimes.
I think that so I'm always making things, whether I like record it or not. I'm always running like a track in my head, and it's honestly it kind of makes me insufferable, or at least like that's how I feel, because I'm always trying to make a bit. I'm always trying to riff. I'm always trying to like do it, even if I don't say it, right? And I think part of it, we had a whole conversation about like male friend groups versus female friend groups, and I do actually think this is part of it. I'm not saying like one person can't exhibit the behavior of the other, but like every friend group I ever had was a constant stream of references, insults, and trying to one up the other person in terms
Yeah.
of like making something funny.
I was telling Cameron about how this is my experience, like when it's only like a bunch of dudes and me. It's like you're constantly shitting on each other, and the goal is not to be at the bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah. Like Like even through, I mean, like it's I'm not in that many like group chats these days because it's a lot of work, man. It's like a full-time job.
To
But
diss each other?
I mean, yeah, kinda. Because if you don't say something for a while, then you started getting roasted because you're not defending yourself. It's just the whole thing. But like my buddy and I, that text back and forth, you know, he works for the federal government as like the engineer for this like pretty important piece of hardware for the Navy. And he's the only person in his department that knows about it because everybody else retired and now they're trying to force him out. And I just tell him that every day, I'm like, hey, dude, hope you get fired today. Like stuff like that.
To make him feel better, right?
Yeah, and because like now it sucks. He has to get up at like 5 a.m. instead of like because he used to work from home. Anyway, so I love making his day worse, and I think that's because like it makes it better, and I think that's the core of male friendships in a lot of ways, and that is how I approach every aspect of my life, even if I don't say it out loud. And so like. I don't feel like some little, you know, divine birdie is speaking in my ear, but I do know that I have this kind of like pot simmering in my head all the time. And then if I'm like on a walk and I see like a tree that reminds me of a thing, then like that ingredient goes in the pot. And then sometimes like a nice little, you know, creative smell wafts up and you're like, oh, this could be a scene in a thing, or this is like the beginnings of an essay, or this is like whatever, right? And it's so I view it as like a combination of the somatic and intellectual parts of me, just like, and then like me and the external world are always colliding. And then sometimes via like brain brownie and motion, ideas pop out and I record some of them. That's like mostly my creative process.
So you're like communing with nature and then you receive something through your little brain antenna and then you write it down.
Or computers or rocks. I mean, I guess rocks are nature. Concrete I commune with. I like laying down on concrete. I haven't laid down in the middle of a parking lot in a while, but I think I need to do that. I like doing that.
What is the grounding purpose of laying down in a concrete parking lot?
Because you just look up, you know? Like when you look up, you just can't. I mean, I guess you're seeing the atmosphere because that's where the blue color comes from. But like when you're looking up, you're looking in the same direction everywhere that you're looking up, but it's always a different experience. And I think that there's something really interesting and serene about that. I've been laying down on the ground and looking up a lot recently. Did it on vacation, and then I've been going into the woods near my house and doing that too, just for 10, 20 minutes at a time.
Do you see like floaters when you're looking up into the sky?
Honestly, before I went on vacation, it was still snowy, and so everything was like white, so I could see it. There was more contrast in my vision. I would see floaters every time I walked, and I was just like, "Am I about to have a stroke?"
Oh,
because that like I don't know for sure if it's a stroke signal, but like I don't normally. I know there's like always stuff in there, but I do know floaters are an indicator of some illnesses. So I was worried about that for a second.
really?
John, I don't know if it's Buddhist, but
I need to
it
look
sure
this up.
was.
My impression is that they're a natural part of the eyeball, and that there's even like a Family Guy little cutaway about floaters.
I mean, I do get all my medical advice from Family Guy, so that you might be onto something there.
Oh, I like how John's like very Buddhist, Cameron.
So Kristen,
Every religion likes to claim when you say something intellectual.
yeah, I do have a question though. Before we get into this buche, why should anyone listen to us about creativity?
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Why? Why do you think? Is it?
I
is
think
it
it's
because
about like the before and after, which is actually like sort of hard to present, right? Because people know us in our mostly current state. Like, I don't know about you, but I used to be much more inhibited, like kind of like average. I'm not gonna yap on the internet and like post things all day. Like that's not that's not normal behavior. That's not like something I would do, or I would feel like really bad. This is like a very typical Asian immigrant thing, which is like if you're making art, that means you're a loser.
I mean, that's true though.
So we'll get into that. But you know what I mean? That like any expression of creativity that doesn't lead to immediate monetary output is a bad thing to do. Like an
Got it.
actual bad thing to do. And I
That-
feel like it took me many years to be able to overcome that and
yeah.
realize that no, like you can just make things. So I feel like for me, like it's the transformation which isn't as obvious. But maybe I should talk about more.
That's really funny that you gave like a meaningful and heartfelt answer because I was just gonna make a bit out of it.
Oh, okay. So you go on.
No, I mean it's done. But like we're not that famous, and by not that famous, I mean not at all. We are kind of well off, like varying degrees in different parts of our life. Like we do have pretty stable relationships, which is good.
Mhm.
But like for me, I feel pretty good about what I do every day, even if I'm like in the valley of despair a lot of the time. Like it's like a different valley of despair versus like the life that I used to live, which is very much for other people's purposes.
Mhm.
And a key part of figuring out how I wanted to live my life involves understanding like my creative process for making things like poems, writing, essays, music, but also just even in my like work in code and stuff like that. I view all of those as parts, like facets of the same diamond. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
like for anybody that doesn't feel like they're connected to things, like you don't need to be doing a creative thing as your core job every day to
Mhm.
like feel better about your day-to-day life. Like one of the things that really bums me out about how we view creativity, kind of like in the lens that you're talking about with Asian families, like my family was kind of like that, but
Mhm.
but less in the like you have to do this and make money, and more in the like, hey, we just want you to have our vision of what a good life is.
Mhm.
And it's just like a very different planet's worldview than today. And I really think that doing whatever you do to sustain yourself financially needs to kind of be separated, except for very few people that can manage to get it overlap. And if you don't figure out how to find like your path to doing creative things, and by the way, like playing video games or just being in your family and making jokes within your family, all of those I view as like pieces of being creative, more creative
Mhm.
in your life,
Mhm.
and things that make your life better.
Yeah.
And so that's like why I think it's genuinely important.
Right. Hold on a second. You entertain the chat because I
Yeah.
forgot to close the window and now it's noisy.
Wah, wah. Pugson, what do you mean? You might say something that I never thought about, which unlocks a path for me. Oh yeah. We're trying to, dude. I'm a random word generator, and sometimes they come into useful sentences.
Yeah, well, like those Cloudflare lava lamps. You just never know what we will say.
Yeah, for real. Shout out Cloudflare. John, it's okay. We're you can claim whatever you want. We're just joshing here. We're just
Yeah.
John in here. You know what I mean? Actually, I think
Yeah.
John beans prostitution. If I'm,
Oh,
if I'm being
jeez.
honest. I'm not going to use that as a gerund anymore.
Mhm.
Kristen,
That's a big word, Sharon.
do you have any dreams last night?
I think I did, but I don't remember. It was like a little bit stressful.
You don't have a dream journal, or you didn't want to remember this one?
I went through a period where I did do a lot more dream journal stuff,
Yeah.
but lately didn't feel drawn to do that.
Why?
I have no reasons for things. I get that.
I don't believe that at all. I think you have a lot of reasons for things.
Well, anyway, what did you dream? Something impactful?
I was like trying to remember it before we got on. So you ever drink a bunch of milk and then have crazy dreams afterwards?
No.
Yeah,
Um,
I was slamming some milk last night. No, I mean I was having cereal, and that comes with milk, unless you're one of those water people.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know. But I had a dream. So like, I was on. So have you ever been in a place where they took attendance by you writing your name on a piece of paper? But like
Yeah.
you wrote the name, not the administrator.
Mhm.
So they used to do that in the army a lot. and if you came in late, they would often have a different piece of paper out, so you signed the name, and now you're on the late list. And I was having one of those dreams where I kept showing up to things, and I kept being like, I kept showing up to things on time, but forgetting to sign the paper and having to sign the late
Wait,
list.
no, that you can. Yeah, I remember I told you about my variations of these. Like, I'm studying for an exam, but I never took the class. This is just a variation of that. Come on.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like that you're not prepared dream.
What's it mean?
I always thought it means like there was some part of me that's stressed, and it feels stressed, so it has to make up a scenario where stress would logically happen.
Well, no, I get that. Like that feels like level 0 dream analysis. I
Oh, you
want
want
the
like what, a
crystals analysis.
Jungian sort of thing?
Yeah, I want the what's the sticks called?
The sticks.
You know what I'm talking about?
I Ching?
Yeah, I Ching. Yeah. We don't need no look-up person. You know everything.
Okay. I mean, did something happen recently that is stressful
I
for
mean,
you?
you know
that's
everything
only
in my
things.
life. He said the name. I don't know. It just came to me. It came to me in a dream, and I wanted to talk about it. I mean, I did not forget. I could not physically move my body to do some preparation for the stream, but we're doing it live anyway.
So do you have these? So for me, yes. Like, to be honest, everyone, like on Tuesdays, like Monday nights, I do tend to have more stressful dreams because my concern is that, well, Cameron might eat cement, or I might be late because that actually happened one time. So,
Wait, you still get
I
stressed
feel like
about that?
that's where it happens.
It was funny when you weren't even here. It wasn't even bad.
Oh.
No, I'm
okay.
not saying that it's like worse when you're here, but the scenario was funny.
That is what Cameron said. The show is worse.
Yeah, no, we're
Read
actually,
it.
Kristen, I needed to tell you, I'm going to kick you off. It's just be the OK Cameron show.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
on Thursdays when we do our co-working, that sometimes happens.
Also me. I
Yes.
mean, you can be on. We just won't let your mic be on.
Oh, okay. I'll just get into the International School of Miming.
Ooh. If you showed up in a costume, that'd be pretty funny. Like a T-Rex one.
Oh.
That would be my source of creativity for the week. For
Okay.
sure.
Okay, you asked for it. But yeah, should we ban Kristen?
Ban Kristen.
I gotta be really careful on this new interface too, to not accidentally ban anybody.
we found we're not going to figure out. OK Kanger is not a good name. Vetoed.
Yeah.
But we did find a poll tool in this new thing. We're not going to pull it up because we broke it. But expect some polls in the future,
Yes.
and we're going to vote if Kristen stays on the show. But, I
Right.
don't make the rules, Kristen. The chat does.
Yeah. So actually we can probably do it manually. I think we don't have like that many people right now. But like Cameron came up with the most confusing tiering system ever.
No, it's a good tiering system. Well, calm down. It's
Well,
great. Chat, you're gonna love
those
it.
of you who've been on the internet for like a hot minute, you know about the tiering system, right? It starts with S, which
Yes.
apparently a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, because they're
not
like,
weebs.
losers that aren't on the internet all the time.
Yeah. S tier, which has like Japanese origins, and
top
then
tier.
and then it goes to like A B C D E F. Like,
Yeah, S tier is
right?
like Super Smash Brothers Melee.
Yeah.
A tier is like Brawl. B tier, you know what I mean? Like that. Those are the tiers.
So then Cameron said, "Oh yeah, our systems can be like this. Okay,
could be way
it's
better.
C, and then C.
Okay, first of all, that's not how we're gonna say it. Okay, so chat, hear me out. All right, there's 3 C's with OK Banger. There's Kristen. All right, you with me? There's Cameron, 2 C's, and what's the 3rd C? Obviously, it's chat. 3 C show. All right, OK Banger is a triple C show, and we're not gonna call it 3 C. Gotta say triple C because triple sounds more premium. I think.
It's a triptych of C's.
Yeah, triptych of C's, the triptych tier. Gosh, man, the lore writes itself. All right, so we're gonna have these books like this on Target, and if one of us likes it, it's C tier. If 2 of us likes it, double C tier. And then if 3 of us like it, it's triple C tier. And I think
Yeah, and the us is you, in case that is not obvious.
okay, no. This is a triumvirate. This is a triptych.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's 3 characters on the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a character. It's another C. I feel like this is the right solution. What do you think, Kristen? I know
This is
you
turning
don't.
into those conspiracy theorists who see patterns and everything.
Yeah, no.
Conspiracy starts with C2. Oh my god.
I feel like it's fate. What is your divine source telling you?
It's telling me let's get into the book.
All right. All right, Kristen, you wanna kick us off here?
Yeah, so the origin of how we picked this book, I think you were reading it and I told you that, oh, I read it a long time ago and I thought it was very vague. I think
Yeah.
I had a relatively negative reaction to it.
Yeah.
But now that I've read it again, I really like it.
All right. The book is called The Creative Act: A Way of Being by Rick Rubin.
Yes,
Continue.
the famous music producer person.
Infamous.
But it is actually written, I think like that's not super clear unless you dig into it, by Neil Strauss, by the way, who wrote The
Oh, dang.
Game and like other
He wrote
books
what?
that were-
What did he write?
The Game. You know the book about how to pick up women?
Are you serious?
Yes.
I didn't catch this at all. Cool beans. Yes, you did, and there's gonna be a test.
I think we did not do a good job announcing the book reading assignments.
No, I asked about it, and then I don't think we ever did.
Oh, okay. Whoops. But yeah, like it is a ghost written book. So I think that's one thing that people need to know is that like, creativity requires collaboration, which is one of the chapters in the book. And that like, Neil Strauss is a good writer. And he also has since renounced
Dang
his
it.
game ways, by the way.
He did. That's good.
Yes. And now he's a family man. So
But how am I gonna pick up strange women without that book?
you whether you wear a peacock feather.
Mm.
Oh yeah, maybe at the upcoming conference.
Oh yeah, I will get a peacock feather and I will put it in my fedora.
Yes.
I actually, Kristen, I do need to interrupt you. DeWoofy did let us know that he just lost the game and I just lost the game too, and now you have as well. So I'm very sorry about that.
Oh.
Oh,
Do I
no.
get a consolation prize?
Oh no, do you not know about the game?
No.
Oh no, Kristen. Oh no. Chat, what are we gonna do? Kristen, this is crazy. This is like old internet. Okay, I know we're doing this book thing. We gotta take a little sojourn.
Yeah, the lava lamp has to churn. Well, what are we talking about?
You're always playing the game.
Okay.
Everybody's always playing the game. You're winning the game unless you are thinking about the game. And if you are thinking about the game, you're losing it and you have to announce, I just lost the game. And you will continue to lose it until you forget about the game. So that is the nature of the beast. And I'm sorry for DeWoofy ruining your life. And now we can continue, unless you have questions.
I feel like this is a very deeply philosophical, stupid thing.
Yeah, it is like I've been playing the game for, like Pugson said, like 20 years.
Oh, okay. Well, it reminds me of Puxton's like do not speak chat or something.
Yeah, it's very same energy, except the game is much more ubiquitous than that chat. Okay, back to the book.
Yeah,
sorry for the
Anyway,
distraction.
Yes. So I have some notes on the book, but I have some questions for you. I think do we go through our pros and cons list really quickly of what we like and don't like?
All right, so we're riffing. I think we do opening statements.
Oh.
We go, this is what I think. This is what I think. It doesn't need to be big.
Truly
you
a
don't need
riff.
to be
A riff
a
begins
simple
with
southern
opening
lawyer.
statements.
What?
Riffs begin with opening statements. I
Yeah.
feel like it's such a jarring clash of like freestyle rap and like high school debate.
You don't need to prepare. You just need to speak extemporaneously. Like I was saying, you don't need to be a simple southern lawyer and make a big old complicated mess of things. You just
Please
say what you
use that
feel.
accent for the rest of the show.
I do declare I will not. The Savannah molasses accent is very hard to keep up for a long period of time. So I say we both say what we think. Chat can say what they think if they feel like it, and then we kind of go into a back and forth and then roll from there. Mm-hmm. So was that your opening statement? Are you ready to close your argument?
Oh, no, I haven't even started.
Okay, let's get it going. Rip the Band-Aid.
So the Creative Act is a really good IYKYK style of book. it makes a lot of sense if you already do the things that is like recommended here, and you're like reading it to be like, ah, yes, I do these things. But if you're looking for instructional on how to be creative, it is a little bit vague, and there are better books out there.
Yeah. It was a bad checklist.
Thus ends my statement.
Oh,
Should I end with amen? Like, how do I end a statement?
Amen. Succinct, powerful. I think I'll remember it for the rest of my days. All right, so I wanted to hate this book, and then I wanted to love it, and I ended up not doing either. The like Rick Rubin is pretty controversial in that some people think he's, the second coming of, I don't know, creative Jesus. Other people think he's like just a dude that like failed upwards and hasn't really done anything for people. I've never been in the room with the dude, so I can't have an informed opinion about it, but I do know a bunch of different people that I respect have different opinions about Rick Rubin, which is interesting. And I think the book is kind of a good mirror for Rick Rubin being the mirror for creatives, right? Because if you don't have opinions about creative stuff and you read this book, you're going to come away with zero additional opinions about creative stuff, basically. It's kind of like the creative book equivalent, of Twilight, where every girl can see themselves in Bella because like it's like vague enough, some would say bland enough, that you can like fit yourself in that character spot. But I actually think it's kind of effective. And to his credit,
Twilight is famous.
Twilight has been a very successful book series, and so I'm not hating. I'm a big Sparkle vampire fan. It's pretty funny. Mini claim to fame that the character the actor that plays Jacob, what's his name, Taylor something, Lautner?
Yeah.
His parents, when he decided to become an actor, his parents threatened to send him to the Virginia Military Institute, which is my undergrad for college. So that's like a fun little Twilight connection that I have, is that I willingly went to the school that Taylor Lautner's parents threatened him with. All right, so
imagine if he turned out.
Imagine. It could have been me if I didn't go. I could have been Jacob. I was too young. That would have been inappropriate. But so what I like about the start of the book, maybe it's Rick, maybe it's Neil, but he's like, nothing in this book is true. It's stuff that I've noticed. Don't listen to anything that doesn't resonate with you. Very on brand for the mirror thing, but also pretty good advice for creative stuff. Like, the crappy thing, or the great thing, depending on how you look at it, about creative things is not only is everything not going to work for you, it's also not going to work for you at any specific point in time. So like your process that really works for you today might not work for you a month from now, and you're just going to have to figure it out and like do something different. And so having this big survey of a bunch of different creative things, some of them pretty woo-woo spiritual that like I did not vibe with, and some of them kind of practical, and then some of them truly only Rick Rubin can talk about type things. One specific chapter is, I think it's called Apocrypha, where it's like he's just reflecting on the stories he hears about how certain albums or whatever were made, and how him being in some of those rooms, he's like, no, the creator, like the artist was just a person. And the story that leads up to this mythical album or whatever is a myth. And the day-to-day boringness of it, like sometimes like facts are true, but the overall mythical nature of the creation is not really true, which I think is very useful for somebody who is not successful, aka us, like to remember, because like you want to look at somebody and be like, oh, they're a demigod, and no, they're just people. And that for me was really grounding. So ultimately, I found a lot of things that I liked about this book. I found a lot of things that I didn't jive with, and that is great for me.
So I really liked how he gave some like practical advice to some extent, or like some observations that I did not expect from this book. Like, it's okay to have a job, Like he says that explicitly in one of the chapters. Like you do not have to make art your full-time job. Like that is, sometimes it's better to have like a stable, like something, or another, and just have the
Yeah.
time to play.
I mean, he
And
goes
he also
further, right? He
acknowledges,
says like for some people that's
Yeah.
like a better way to make things.
right. And I feel like a lot of these like kind of books are like, you gotta throw it all in, and at least he acknowledges the ranges. And like he also says you have to make art for yourself.
Yeah.
Which I think is super important and very easy to lose track of, as you know.
Incredibly easy.
And he acknowledges that artists have big feelings. So he talks about that a lot, right? Where he's like, that's why people are on drugs like all the time, because like that's why the music is so good, because they have all the feelings, and then it feels really bad, and then like it's easier to, or like very understandably go towards like chemical means. So I feel like in all of that, I already feel like he's like therapizing a lot of artists and like encouraging acceptance.
To be fair, he also says that the drugs don't make the art better. Like he explicitly says, like he's seen it that kind of like addiction destroy a lot more pieces of art than actually help create. So he's not advocating for artists to be addicted to things.
Yeah, exactly. So Cool Beans asked for some good quotes. So I'll start with the beginning quote. The object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable.
Yep.
Yeah, so I feel like that's super important.
When was the last time you were in that state?
I feel it more and more, actually. I know, despite how I behave. To me, I feel like for everyone that I've met, like the art is within everyone already, and it's about uninhibition rather than seeking an external source. So although we talked about like divine inspiration and mundane inspiration, a lot of it is to like redirect what's already within based on one's experience.
Okay. Wait, so what does that mean for you? Actually, I haven't asked this. What do you consider your creative output? Like obviously this show and
Oh, that's funny. My question for you was, do you consider yourself an artist?
So I try to use the word creator selfishly because I have like a startup really related to creating. I also think of myself a little bit closer to the creator side of it because specifically of a chapter that he has in here about experimenters versus finishers. Do you remember that chapter?
Go on. I vaguely remember.
So like basically this is one of the few like claims he makes in here, but he's like more or less artists are there's like two types. There are experimentalists where they're continually making a new thing. They're really good at finding seeds of ideas that they like and enjoy, and then they'll play with it up to a point, and then it'll go on the shelf, but it won't, like it'll be 40, 50, 70% done, and then they'll move on. Whereas another category of like artists or creators are finishers that are really, really good at taking the good core idea and bringing it to its like finished state. Obviously that like glosses over a lot of nuance with like how people work, but it's very useful for me who considers themselves like pretty squarely in the experimentalist category of
okay. I was still gonna see like how does Cameron perceive himself? It better be the experimentalist.
100% experimentalist. And I want to ask you what you were in a second, but like as a person that is like, he talks about this, and then he talks about he sits on the idea of finishing work for a little while. And this was the most helpful part of the book for me, was he gives permission to find seeds. And he explicitly talks about how like seeds of ideas might not need to germinate today. And so a thing that you have, and then you squirrel away in a little list somewhere or a file like I do, you might come back 6 months, a year later, and it might be the time for that thing. And it kind of rationalizes or validates stuff that I was already doing. So that's why I kind of like it, because it's confirmation bias. But I also like to believe that I'm not just coming up with pure chaff and only publish something like once a month or once every 2 months. It's like, no, all of these might actually turn into something really valuable one day once I dial in my finisher kind of workflow. And so, but in the next chapter or whatever, he talks about these seeds also need to be countered with there's an energy when you just create something, like he calls it like inspiration or whatever. That energy might make the piece uniquely different if you make an end-to-end prototype of it or MVP, or maybe finish it in that initial session. And
I
I've
feel
really
like you're
found,
really drawn to that based on the way I observe you work.
I do like, it's because I've been burned so many times of the like, oh, I made good progress on this thing. Let me like go to something else for a little while. And then I try to come back and the magic just isn't there. And so,
But doesn't that contradict with the other advice of like you shouldn't rely on your emotions to make something that is literally on a checklist at the end?
yes. And so what he's talking about is take advantage of it when it's there. Don't rely on that solely for how you do things.
Yeah,
And so it's like,
fair.
it is a little bit contradictory. And that's okay, because he has this big upfront caveat about like, don't listen to the stuff that doesn't resonate with you right now. And so it's not fully satisfying because it's not this like prophet coming down and saying, this is how you make a beautiful thing. But it's also a lot better than somebody telling you how to make a beautiful thing and it just not freaking working for you, you know?
So this relates to another idea that he brings up that I've seen in this other book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, which is the idea that ideas have their own entities or beings, and if you don't catch an idea as it's going through you, it actually goes to someone else.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I buy that 1 bajillion%.
Oh wow, this is the most woo-woo I've caught you.
Oh, it's not woo-woo. All right, but continue, and then I will.
Okay, I feel like yes, there is a secular, mundane explanation for it, which is independent simultaneous discovery. When the world is ready, then like things will pop up, and you gotta catch it or you lose it.
Every culture has wheels. Every culture has dumplings. Calculus was invented in 2 different places at once. Like I'm fully bought into like society is discovering a lot of these things, but a lot of people don't like that viewpoint because it is a blow to the armor of great man theory of everything, which is super popular right now.
More so than before, you think?
I think so. I think that I kind of like break it into passive big man assumptions and active big man beliefs or great man beliefs. In the past, the king was the king because the king is the king. You know what I mean? And so like everyone's like, yeah, it's the king, of course. Today, you have people reading mountains of, they're not reading, they're watching videos and shorts. People are consuming mountains of media to convince themselves how great particular people are. And as a result, they are like as much, maybe more so inculcated with this like great man theory of being the only way that society advances. And I think that's really, it's honestly incredibly dangerous. Not what we're talking about, but incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. So in terms of like practical use of this book, so this book goes through a whole bunch of really great like ideas to break out of any blocks. It's almost like Brian Eno's the Oblique Strategies card game, which you can access for free online, but it has a bunch of like ideas and different ways of thinking about the concepts.
Let's drop that link in the Discord afterwards. Let's make a video note to do that. We got a Discord. We'll drop a link for you.
Yes, and this is brand new, so like our first announcement.
Discord,
but like
brand
in terms
new.
of like practically uninhibiting,
Yeah.
I feel like he has like he has a few tips. So before when I was telling you about the book, I was like, he gives no tips. I'm like, oh, that's not true. Like I took them down. So what some of the tips are like beating on the pillow for 5 minutes to express your anger, then journaling, or like those kinds of things. I'm like, okay, like that's a good practice. And then collecting seeds and all of that, right? But I feel like there's a whole category of other books where there's a lot more practice of like how do you get to the state of uninhibition, and like The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, that sort of book I think is much better. My friend Kevin McGillivray, who painted these paintings,
Cool.
yeah, I'll drop the link in Discord too. Like he has a whole bunch of like writing on creativity as it relates to coding that I'm like, okay, that's practical, right? Like how do you tie these like lofty philosophies to the practicality of refactoring your code?
The engineer has practical tips. Surprise, surprise.
Exactly. Exactly. So blending art with like coding and all of that. So I think like those are what I think is more practical, especially towards the middle of the book where I'm like, oh, I see where he's getting at, but if you're trying to do a thing, like this is like way too freaking vague.
Yeah. There's also a good page in here, 139, if you have the book.
Oh.
And it's thoughts and habits not conducive to the work. It's not a page on like what to do about it. It's like a list of kind of warning signs of like, hey, these are things that you might be doing that are not helpful. Some are obvious, like believing you're not good enough, obviously not helpful for doing the work. But going through, there's a little bit. Honestly, I kind of felt sniped by this a little bit.
I know, right? Me too. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, there are practical lists.
Like having goals so ambitious that you can't begin, thinking you can only do your best work in certain conditions, requiring specific tools to do the work, abandoning a project as soon as it gets difficult. All that stuff is like pretty like, oh, dang it, that's me.
I know. So it's worth it to read the book just for this one page, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a picture and drop it in the Discord if you don't feel like reading the book.
Yeah. We have so many to-do list items. Who's gonna remember it? Not me.
Kristen. Oh
Please
yeah,
remind
no.
us later in the
Kristen. So I think we should rate it. We should figure out what tier it is. Do you feel comfortable rating?
Yeah, I would say now that I've read it the second time, I do think it is worth a read, so I will give it a C.
Yeah. What? Okay. So I had an idea. What if we have 2 C's per person? Is this too complicated? 6 C's is like
Too freaking complicated.
sextuple C. That's like the best sextuple. Okay. But okay. So, cause like I realized as we were doing this is like, do you recommend reading it or would I actually, no, it's confusing. Triple C is the word. Simple is better. Keep it simple, Cameron. Kisk. It's my favorite way of saying that. So 1 C from Kristen. All right. 1 C from Cameron because I would recommend it to other people. I'd probably let them borrow it. I wouldn't tell people to buy it. Chat, let us know. We'll tally the comments afterwards. Let us know if this deserves the vaunted triple C tier rating.
How should they vote yes or no?
Just comments and
comments.
replies.
Yeah.
like-
Well, I feel like I would recommend it with an asterisk. Like if
Yep.
someone is stuck in their work, I wouldn't be like, here, read this Rick Rubin book. Like that's gonna get them even more confused, I think.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you are already like an artist type and you want to articulate what you're doing, then I'm like, okay, yeah, this book, might give you the words.
Yeah, it's a legibility finder book, much more
Yeah.
so than a help book. It also, I feel like it would do really, really well as like a desk calendar.
Oh yeah.
Like
You're right.
like reading it back to back to back, you're just kind of like, all right, dude, I get it.
Yeah.
But in a little like index card format of the ideas, it'd probably be, yeah, Pugson. I don't really think the tech scene is a great judge of creativity. Like they're all captured by Rick Rubin's fame much more than his activity. Right? Because he's like a mythical, he's honestly like the archetypical idea guy that a lot of people in tech would like to be. But maybe that's my salt coming out
A little bit.
a little bit. I'm jaded by tech, man. Like I feel like I believed
It's
it
just
was
the jaded by tech, but within tech show.
yeah. But like it's because when you're part of a thing and you care about it, like you want it to be better than maybe perhaps it is. I don't like fundamentally, I think that I thought more of the tech world had like a set of principles they were following or that they like genuinely believed in. And I see it now as much more of this like geek mop sociopath model of, oh, the big bulk of tech is actually sociopaths that are here to capture value as opposed to like the geeks that care about a set of ideals and maybe the mops that are like inspired by those ideals.
I mean, that's been true since like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak.
I know, Kristen, but I learned everything the hard way.
Oh, and also I was thinking for the chat, like realistically, like the chances of someone reading the same book is like, probabilistic. So it makes more sense if the chat is voting based on what we said. Are you more inclined to give the book a read? And that's more of a yes.
Kristen,
and of
I
course,
think
if you read the book, then that's a yes or no.
I think the chat ranking isn't that deep. I think
What?
you know, people, like
Don't
we're not going to do
underestimate
this
our chat.
science wise.
Um, it just feels nice. Oh, I'm reading what Puxton said. Just feels nice to have someone other than Peter Thiel to be referenced on Twitter.
Yeah,
Elman.
that's real, man. Whew. Dude, alt-right Catholics taking over the world. That's crazy, man. Not on my bingo card. All right, Kristen, how are you going to find creative source today?
So, I don't know about you, but maybe as a fellow experimentalist, I feel like my weakness or challenge is finishing, right? So
Yeah.
I never feel like, oh yes, I need to find more sources of inspiration. I'm like, oh my gosh, the drawer is overflowing. I
Yeah.
need to actually just like do a thing and finish it.
My cuppeth
So,
overflow.
yeah, I feel
My
very
cup
lucky in that
overfloweth.
regard. And I think we all also tend to be friends with people who are overflowing with ideas, so that's never an issue. It's always about focusing. So that's why on Thursdays we will now have our co-working session a little bit more regularly, and it would go on for how many hours did we say? 3?
Actually, let's litigate this. You
Okay.
don't sit for 2 hours. I mean, like when I'm like, so I suggested, chat, that we have a co-working session that's like 2 or 3 hours so that we can like really lock in for a period of time. And Kristen's like, I don't want to sit that long, which is like reasonable. But then I was just like, wait, how different are we? So when I say 3 hours, I'm like getting up every 30 minutes or 50 minutes to like shake it out for like 5 minutes. Is that what you thought that I was saying? Or you're
Yeah,
like,
but you're
no.
still on camera, right? You're not ditching the whole stream and coming back.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe go get like a drink or something.
Yeah. So I think it's a bit awkward if there's no one on the screen. I don't know. Maybe my standards are too high because
I
like
mean,
streamers leave the stream all the time. You're right.
Yeah.
I think I just don't watch long streams enough to realize that streamers walk away and then come back all the time.
Yeah, and I also think that like people that are doing work, they'll take the break or they won't. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so like
Well, I mean, people can do whatever. You can join at whatever time you want. But
no, if you watch the stream, you need to be there for 3 hours or else you're banned. No, I mean, I agree.
Yeah. So again, it's almost like when you were asking me about like when we walked away, like discussing how we're gonna talk about the book, and I came away with we're recording a separate video about the book, and you said no, we're talking about the book within the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, what was that about?
Category of misunderstanding.
See, chat, this is we did that like we did the Karen versus Kristen fight episode where we like talked about our text chat. And I like obviously we need to message back and forth. I almost want to get rid of it though, because I feel like we would be better served. No, ban Kristen. That's the campaign we're doing.
Getting rid of Telegram?
Maybe. Because like, all right, so it's pretty good,
Making
but when
beaker face.
because when we're off, it's just like it's so confusing because like we both believe we have such a clear picture of what's happening. And then unless Pugson's right, real streamers don't have legs. That's canon. YouTube cuts them off. But the like until one of us like bleep, bleep, radar figures out, oh, we're not talking about the same thing. We're just like messaging past each other. And obviously we can't get rid of the messages, but sometimes I'm like, it'd be nice if we just had like a 10-minute chat every day. And then we just be like, hey, boop, 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 this is what we're doing.
Is this how I'm now stuck in a stand-up with Cameron every morning? Would it be so funny?
Like it
Maybe
is.
actually that'll be good for my mental health, to be
It's
honest.
arguably the most boomer thing about me is like I genuinely would rather talk to people on the phone because I just know this is narcissistic. But like I feel like I understand people pretty well through text because I have a pretty cocky view of my own reading comprehension. I think a lot of people don't like or have good reading comprehension. Not a comment on you, comment on people in general. And so like when in doubt, I want to talk on the phone because I just don't think people are good at communicating and understanding via text. It has gotten worse over the course of my life as I've worked with a lot of different people through different mediums.
Okay. Well, I'm open to that. So Cool Beans asks, is there a reading assignment for next week?
That's a good question. We haven't thought that far. The answer is yes, but you're going to have to get it from the Discord probably.
Yeah, because well, I have a book in mind actually that Cameron sent to me that we could possibly do.
What's the book?
But
Do you want to do that? Let's just call it.
okay, let's just call it. How about this one?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
How Buildings Learn by
Stuart Brand, who wrote the Whole Earth catalog as well, which
Stuart
someone
Brand.
in the chat might be a fan.
Yeah, the that'll be a good book. I already read it, so that's great. Definitely check that book out. We'll drop a link to it if you want to buy it. It's kind of expensive.
It is kind of expensive,
but
but I can see why, because it's one of these like really weird format.
Yeah, and it's very pretty. Yeah,
Yeah.
Cool Beans. We Discord is the best bad solution we have for
Yes.
getting people together.
And we've set up so that you can also check out when we drop videos and things like that. Yeah, and then we'll also drop esoteric internet finds.
Y'all have no idea how many weirdo links I look at on a daily basis, and so you will. Y'all gonna learn today.
Yes.
Of course, the pretty cocky woofy believes that talking people on the phone is better. You're a sales dude. Of course you.
All
do
right.
that.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, I think like this has been a great chat. So as our conclusion, like I feel like chat's generally positive about the
Yeah,
book.
this is our first book, first triple C tier. Go buy the book. Don't buy the book. I don't care. I had fun talking about it. Hit me up. I'll
That's a
send
really
it to you.
good
maybe
like
if you know.
texture.
Yeah, it
So
high quality
sensorially very
production for
pleasing.
sure.
Yeah. Oh, one last question. What do you think of the fact that they added these notebook line pages at the very back?
I think it's like a remnant of pop science books from like the early 2010s or something. I don't think it's very helpful, but you know, maybe like it doesn't make my experience worse. I just like, okay, some blank pages. What do you think? Because it sounds like you got an opinion.
I like it because I think it's subtly hinting that you gotta like digest the book and like write in your own interpretations or reminders or notes. And you know, I think you and I were talking about how like, you know, do you write in a book? Like, are you a marginalia kind of person? And then we've decided that we both do that.
Yeah, but I'm a dog-eared heathen.
Oh, right. Whereas I was going for the 1,000 post-it notes situation. And there's enough in there where I was like, oh, dang, I could talk to Cameron for an hour about this book.
Yeah.
So, but for the ease of editing, I would not go on.
Yeah, I mean, we talked for a pretty long time, so we'll see how the edit goes. But this is a fun experiment. Thank you all for dropping by. Thanks y'all for
Yeah.
hanging out, and we'll be back next week at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, once again, talking about How Buildings Learn by Stuart Brand.
Yes, and Thursday there is co-working.
Oh,
same time.